Tuesday. Profit-taking and investors' preference for cash has kept stock prices low in key sectors. And investors have also remained cautious over the uncertainty in the larger economy. The closing gong there live from the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and the honors was by the Deputy High Commissioner at the British Embassy. We're bringing to an end trading for today, Tuesday. Business editor Effiong Ekop will join us in the course of the show for more incisive analysis on today's activities at the Nigerian Stock Exchange and how trading actually went. Welcome to the show. I am Tolulokpe Ogunjobi. A warm welcome to you again. Now, President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry says the news of Nigeria exiting recession is a welcome development that will further attract foreign investors. Speaking at the press briefing on the state of the economy, the president of the Business Advocacy Group stressed that improvement in oil price and output coupled with intervention of the Central Bank of Nigeria has helped to stabilize the economy. She added that the chamber will continue to engage stakeholders in the quest for an improved performance and, of course, economy.
While the chamber is concerned about multiplicity of exchange rates, we also note that the Central Bank of Nigeria has been consistent in its intervention in the forex market. This has helped to reduce exchange rate volatility over the last 2 quarters. With the intervention, we have seen improved liquidity of forex and stability of naira against the dollars. Confidence is gradually returning to the market, and we hope that this would be sustained. Nigerian equities market. The stock market has witnessed a positive trend over the last few months. The trend is largely the outcome of recovery in key macroeconomic indicators and a boost in investors' sentiment.
The LCCI there giving a brief on the state of the Nigerian economy. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Ibe Kachiku, says crude oil price will not rise to $100 per barrel this year, 2017, because the current market conditions do not support such expectations. Kachiku explained that more countries are cutting down their dependence on fossil fuels. He noted that the industry would experience better market conditions towards the last quarter of 2018. Oil and gas analyst Marcel Ayan joins me via phone to look more into this and issues surrounding the energy sector. Many thanks for your time. Now, if you can hear me, a barrel of crude oil hitting 100 barrels seems to be a tall dream. Do you see us achieving that in anytime soon?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I said looking at $100 per barrel for a barrel of crude oil. I think that's a tall dream. The minister says that might not even come in 2 years.
Yes, I actually agree with the minister. You know, the crude oil market is a demand and supply market with other indices at play. I will give you an instance. Currently, the daily crude oil production output, that's OPEC, stands at 32.7 million barrels per day. And U.S., also with their shale production, stands at between 8.8 to 8.9 million barrels per day. So considering the pricing and the production, so looking at the increase in pricing in the near future, I think it's going to appreciate, but not up to $100 per barrel, as projected by the international energy markets.
Marcel, you seem to be optimistic with the production of shale oil, and also some countries even launching electric cars. Some are actually trying to even move away from crude oil.
Yes, this is part of the indices we are looking at that makes me more optimistic that $100 per barrel will not be realistic. And I'll tell you this. You know, America is making a projection to produce up to 10 million barrels per day by 2018. And OPEC is cutting down production. Definitely, the projection by the international energy market that the demand for crude oil would appreciate by 2018 by 1.35 million barrels. I think this is where the projection that crude oil will hit $100 per barrel is coming from. But I don't see that realistic because it's garbage in, garbage out. America is increasing production. OPEC is cutting down production. So you find out that most of the players in the crude oil market have not come to agreement. Again, Nigeria, there is a cap on the production of crude oil in regards to Nigeria. We have already exceeded our production cap per day by about 60,000 barrels per day. So yeah, the projection might not be realistic because it's expected that there is going to be surplus in the market, but that's not realistic considering the prevailing market conditions.
I want your last word, please, on petroleum infrastructure, talking about pipelines and refineries. We need private partnership. What do you think?
Okay, the infrastructure and pipelines. I and you know that government is never a good manager of enterprise. So if we must get it right, if we must improve in our infrastructure and refining capacity, we have to get the private sector involved in the whole system, in the whole chain. My own personal suggestion is that government will have to hand off everything that has to do with refining and hand it over to a private sector for us to ensure a very robust output.
Marcus Anyawunde, I must thank you very much for your views, particularly with regards to the oil and gas sector. Well, it's still a highly contributor to the Nigerian economy at the moment, even as we try to diversify. So the oil and gas sector cannot be ignored. Well, outside that now, to the non-oil sector, where the Nigerian Export Promotion Council has applauded the diversification agenda of the government. Executive Director, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Segun Awolowo, says Nigerian export appreciation by 3.2% shows that government's effort is paying off. According to him, this is a proof that the economy has indeed recovered from recession and on the way to sustainable growth. Awolowo added that NEPC is leveraging on the powers of exports to transform the Nigerian economy, create jobs, and lift people out of poverty. And again, the interbank money market will this week experience outflows of 241 billion naira. That's more than 600 million US dollars through treasury bills and FG Sukuk bond auctions. Now, the data from the financial market dealers quote shows that interest rate on collateralized lending falls by 11%, while interest rate on overnight lending drops to 12%. Analysts show that the Central Bank of Nigeria offered 395 billion naira. That's more than 1 billion US dollars worth of bills, while public subscriptions stood at 460 billion naira. That's another more than that's 1.24 billion US dollars. A financial analyst, Nemeka Obiari, joins me now via Skype to look at these issues too critically. Nemeka, can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you join us on the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's start with the report from the Nigerian Export Promotion Council before we move to the Sukuk bond. Now, they are saying that this report and us getting out of recession shows that the diversification agenda seems to be on course. I don't know if you agree to this submission.
If you look at that report that he referred to, you discover that yes, quarter on quarter, our exports of non-oil products increased by about 3.2%. That is from 3 trillion naira to 3.1 trillion. Now, but if you do a critical sector by sector analysis, you also discover that over 62% of this contribution was from the oil sector, crude oil exports, and the other oil-related transactions. We talk about diversification. When we talk about diversification, he mentioned from that report about export of certain other goods like cashew, the way we export about 13 billion naira worth of cashew. If you divide it by 305 naira, that is official exchange rate, we're talking about $42 million a year. He also mentioned about other products like the sesame seeds and all those stuff. Now, the question we should ask ourselves, remember we're talking about 3.2% here of non-oil exports, 3.2%. We are talking about a 126 trillion naira sized economy, $415 billion. We can do much more than what we are currently doing. And I don't really agree that the diversification effort is paying much dividend for now. We've not yet diversified. I will give you a typical example. The Minister for Agriculture mentioned on the issue of cassava and cassava-related derivatives. The global demand for cassava and cassava products is about 400 million metric tons per annum. Nigeria is the largest producer in Africa. We can do as much as up to 120, 140 million metric tons per annum, looking at our land size. You know, what we expect, those of them at the Nigeria Export Promotion Council and those of them at the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, working with the other agencies and Ministry of Agriculture, is to sit down and articulate a clear-cut program with timelines on how we want to diversify, what we want to do, and how we want to. I will take this cassava for example now. Nigeria has a land mass of about 938,000 square kilometers, with about 93 million hectares of land. If we just devote 10% of our land mass to just do cassava, we'll be producing about 140 million metric ton of cassava per annum. That is cassava tubers. If you look at our household consumption, we consume almost about 9 million metric ton of gari every year. We're looking at a production of about 180 million naira, household of about 6. That means we consume about 36 million metric ton of cassava tubers just for the staple foods, gari, cassava-related foods. Therefore, we have at least excess of about 100 million metric ton of cassava that we can actually use for things like ethanol production, cassava chips, and even pharmaceutical grade flour. Scientifically, how are we going to go about it? Like I said, we have people in the Ministry of Agriculture, we have people in these agencies that promote investment and export. We can sit down and ask ourselves this question. What do we do to ensure that in the next 2 years, in the next 1 year, we're able to produce 140 million metric ton of cassava? What is the land mass? Working with the state and local government areas, you know, how do we form farmers into cooperatives. States like Kwara State, states like Ogun State are doing it. We have one of the major problems we have in Nigeria is issue of subsistence farming. We can put people into cooperatives, get farmers, even those who are doing subsistence, scientifically using the 4-tier system of government, the communities, with the support of the government and the funding agencies to scientifically say, okay, this year, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to achieve it. And then we'll go about and measure it. There is always the issue of measurement and impact assessment. Take, for instance, on some of the goods that we banned. We have the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. There is no skyrocket science about this. We have goods that we can creditably produce in Nigeria here. We have importers that import these goods. I've given instances of how we can do some of these things. These importers are big. They bring in these things here. Some of these things require low to low that can be manufactured here. What stops us from going across, meeting those importers? Where do you import this thing from? Who are the manufacturers in those areas? How do we bring them set up plants in Nigeria, partnering with those manufacturers, those importers, government providing them with incentives, funding support and infrastructure support to ensure that some of these things that we import can be produced here. I gave the example of cocoa. Côte d'Ivoire is the biggest exporter of cocoa in Africa. Today, they took over that position from Nigeria. Yeah. But you discover that the global cocoa derivative market, like the cheese and the chocolate, is about $98 billion. How do we get those exporters of those chocolates from Netherlands, from South Africa, to come to Nigeria, partnering with the importers to set up plants? These are the kind of things agencies, the NIPC, the EPC, working with them, should sit down and articulate. And we'll say, if we want to diversify, this is what we want to achieve with Gary, with Sesame Street, with cashew. And then we plan it and we say, okay, this is what we want. And there will be impact assessment to see where we are, okay, what we are doing, and how we want to achieve it.
All right, Nemeka, let's move away from that now. Good submission. Now, I'm sure you've seen the headline too for today. Uncertainty hits the financial market as 241 billion naira outflow via Sukuk bond and treasury bills hits the interbank market. Now, I don't know if you also believe that there's any uncertainty with this development, because I think we need this, particularly with regards to infrastructure deficits that we face at this time.
There is so much greater uncertainty in the financial market over the last 1 year. Like I said, government borrowing through issuance of bonds and central bank T-bills, which they use to mop up liquidity in the market, is actually crowding out the private sector investors, private sector borrowers. If you go to the market today, 90-day money that is even secured is going for about 29-32%. This is not supposed to be so. For a country that is mounting diversification, for a country that is talking about increasing manufacturing, not manufacturing, increasing manufacturing, we must try as much as possible to reduce the cost of fund in Nigeria. The incessant incursions of the federal government of Nigeria, of the state government, or the public sector borrowing in the financial market is affecting liquidity in that system. Of course, this is one of the disingenuous ways with which the Central Bank of Nigeria has continued to manage stability in the foreign exchange market. The argument goes that since Nigeria is an import-dependent economy, import-dependent economy by choice, because we will have diversified long ago, therefore what affects the foreign exchange market affects the ecosystem more than the interest rate, because the borrower can also seek for source of funding away from the commercial banking sector. But the truth remains that this distortion in the system, you mentioned now the T-bills that were issued that were oversubscribed, now the Sukuk bond that the federal government of Nigeria said that are raising to build roads, is crowding out private sector borrowing. Private sector, the only thing that the federal government of Nigeria must do, how do we ensure that there is liquidity in the market? How do we ensure that we critical? You cannot talk about diversification when there is no manufacturing. You cannot talk about diversification when the private sectors do not have the right incentives, low cost of funding, infrastructure support to be able to manufacture. If you look at 90-day money secured is going for 32%, at what rate or what cost will the manufacturer be able to produce? And who is he going to sell to? And the high cost of production will also be impacted because of competing similar products that are imported that are cheaper. Yeah. So when the cost of fund is so high because of public sector borrowing, which has overcrowded out private sector borrowing, it will make the cost of production for local manufacturer high compared to imported things from China.
I must interject now. Thank you very much. I know you could go on and on, the passion and is there. But let's just thank you very much for your submission today on Business Nigeria. Very two important topics there. Thank you very much for sharing your views with us. Thank you very much for sharing your views with us. Well, after the break, TVC News business editor Effiong Ekop will be joining us live from the exchange. Don't go away. It's still Business Nigeria. Stay with us. Glad to have you join us back. Now let's cross live to the business editor, Effiong Ekop, who's standing by at the Nigerian stock market here in Lagos. Ekop, take it away.
Tolu, good afternoon. The market is still trading in the lower territory. This Tuesday, the market ended downwards by 0.08%. That is to tell you that stock prices are dipping and they are getting weaker. Although it presents an opportunity for new entrants into the capital market. I have somebody who traded on the floor. His name is Paul Uzum, a dealer with Royal Guarantee Trust Securities. Paul, thank you for coming to the program.
Thank you.
Tell me the forces that played on the trading floor since 9:30 and now.
Okay, today the markets lost marginally by 0.08%, and you had some stocks that dominated trading, which included Guarantee. The Guarantee did about 48% of the market. Then you had stocks like Zenith, you had Nigerian Breweries and Nestle. These four stocks I mentioned, are the territories of foreign institutional investors. They do a lot of trades, a lot of trade volumes in these our markets, and they tend to cluster their investment, their transactions, activities around these four stocks I mentioned. Also, they also look at they also trade on bank placements. So these four stocks were the drivers of trades in the markets. Then among his gainers of the day, I think we had Nestle that gained 23 naira 90 kobo, and you also had Guarantee Trust Bank that gained 54 kobo today. Then on the negative territory, you had stocks like 7-Up. 7-Up lost about over 4.9% today. 7-Up has been struggling. Their FY16 or FY17 that came out 2 months ago was not impressive. They came with a 10 billion loss, and the first quarter of 2017 result that came out just about a month ago, was also not impressive. They also had a 2.5 billion loss. The market is still reacting negatively to their current fundamentals.
Okay, let me ask at this stage, if the market still moves in the negative territories, we had market makers in the system. So will it be necessary that we will call them in to market make, or are they actually market making?
Yes, let me answer the question by saying that market makers are not doing the job of Father Christmas. They provide liquidity to the market, add market depth by buying stocks when there tends to be some pressure. Come in, create liquidity, buy stocks when everybody is running away, sell when people are sell the same stock, if possible, on the same day. And for the market maker, is in a business of making money. When he sees that it's not profitable to trade on stocks,
but this is supposed to be the season for them to show their activities in the market.
Well, there's no particular season for market makers to come in. Market makers come in, they trade on stocks when they find it profitable for them to do so.
So now that the stocks are down,
No, not that the stocks are down. What you are saying is that the market has recorded significant gain this year. You've had significant rally in the market this year. Okay. So at the moment, you have investors who are being cautious, trying to reprice these assets to see, okay, can we get this things lower? Why those who are selling and saying, okay, I cannot hold my money, I cannot just tie my money down, let me hold on and watch again and see the direction of the market and be sure.
So there is no need to think in the direction of market making.
No, market makers will always be there, but they will always come in. They only come in when they find it profitable to come in. They don't just come in with the purpose of just buying stocks or buying stake because they are market makers. They come in when it's profitable.
Okay, looking ahead, you still see us moving in the negative territory?
Well, at the moment now, of late, one major factor that shapes the direction of the markets is the tension you've had in the country in the past 2 weeks. I expect that as the political tension from Southeast and gets resolved, when we start having more some sense of stability and the threats, the threats starts dying off, then we'll see better direction in the markets. Then let's not also forget that by next month, looks like by this time next month, we'll start seeing Q3 results for most of the companies, and for those who have done well, the markets will chase after them. Okay. For Paul, especially for the banks.
Paul, we are short of time.
Okay.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate that you've come here.
Thank you.
Paul Uzim, a trader with Royal Securities Limited. Back to you, the studio, Tulu.
Thank you very much, Effiong Ekop there, bringing us up to speed with activities live from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Well, that's a wrap for you on the show today. Join us tomorrow for, well, of course, another incisive and educating analysis. I leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands today. On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you very much for watching.